What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Clark Tank Special Steam Summer Sale Edition this week, and we're also going to be playing Nex Machina, which is interesting. It seems to be breaking some of the conventional wisdom that twin-stick shooters don't really sell well. So we're going to play that and see if we can figure out how it is selling so well. First off, I wanted to discuss this article. It's an interesting one. This guy, Michael or Michelle, analyzed, what the games that sell well on Steam have in common, and did some crunching. And I think there's some interesting stuff and some kind of cautionary stuff that we can get out of this article. You should definitely read the whole thing, but I'll give you the highlights or my takeaways from it. This chart is pretty interesting. Well, this one is showing the average number of players in the first 2 months after release and how many games achieved that level. So, one player as your average in the first 2 months is not great. And the majority of games, or most, the largest bar is in that category. And then it's going down and down. And only 25 games between August 2012 and July 2016 have had 140,000 average players in the first 2 months. So that's a ton, obviously. But, this is a pretty smooth distribution. But then what this chart is showing, which I think is the more interesting one, is how many there were per year in those different categories. So in 2013, there were hardly any that only had, 0 to 1 average players. And in 2014, there's quite a few more. In 2015, even more. So 2013 was the era of, hand-curated games. There were not very many games launched on Steam, only like 400 or something. And then green light, and then the floodgates slowly starting to open. Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this chart is that the bottom two segments are getting bigger, but these other ones don't seem to be changing nearly as much. So those top segments, which is where you need to be in order to actually make a living. Like you probably need to be in the green area, really, which is kind of like the top 5%ish, which people already know that you need to be in the very top echelon in order to make a living making indie games. And I think what this shows that I think is interesting is that, the number of games that succeed, that are, that can make a living for you, is kind of constant. And sure, there's more other games that are competition, but that doesn't mean that fewer games are succeeding. And if anything, this super green one is at the very top, is a little bit thicker. So sure, there's more competition, but you needed to be in the top 5% of games. You needed to be making, a game of this caliber, even back in 2013. There are many games out there that are not getting any audience at all. But I assume that, if you were an experienced indie dev, you're not going to fall into these groups. You'd have to be, disregarding many of the learnings that you could learn from other indie games in order to make a game that kind of falls into these 0 to 1 or 1 to 5 categories, or 5 to 20 even. Those games, must have some serious flaws in them. So yeah, the total is constant and the ratio is smaller. It's interesting. This chunk is quite similar. More people are putting out games now that it's easier to make crap and put it on the market. Yeah, so these I wouldn't use those exact words, but yes, these games that are in these sections are not great games, right? Yeah, 5 to 20 is still not great. You're not making much money if you've only got 5 to 20, average players. So yeah, you really need to be in this greenish and light bluish area if you wanna make a living making games, and that really hasn't changed since 2013. So I personally think that that's pretty comforting. You still need to make a high quality, a high caliber game, just like you used to have to. So despite the floodgates opening, I think many things are still the same. All right, let's take a look at Steam Profit final scores that Lars has linked up for us. So this is all the games that have been out for a month or more, I suppose. So if you're not familiar with Steam Profit, it is a league, a kind of a game where you try to predict which games will sell the best out of the games that are launched that week. And the score is, after 1 month has gone by, we take a look at the number of players shown in Steam Spy, the lower bound of the number of players, and multiply that by the lowest price that it had during its launch window. So it's basically probably an underestimate for the revenue that the game generated during its first month. So this is something that I've wanted to look at because it'll make sure that we don't have things slip past us, because there's a lot of games that do well and are probably selling well enough that they can support their creators, full time, but they don't quite make it in the top 50, or at least they're not in the top 50 when we are looking at it on the Clark Tank. But this will let us see retrospectively which games did do well, and there may be some surprises in there. So there's probably stuff that we can learn from this list that we're not getting by just looking at the Steam Top 50. So Dead Cells is obvious. It has been a pretty huge hit. Little Nightmares, which we talked about, I was a bit surprised by this just because I have somewhat of a bias against adventure-y style games. I think that they're sort of in the decline, but clearly there are still many, many fans of the genre. I don't think that the genre is growing in the same way that many other genres are, but if you make a high-quality game in that genre, you can still succeed. And Thimbleweed Park is another example of that. It's sold quite well, and I think it's actually on the front page of Steam right now. So yeah, you can still succeed with adventure games. I just don't think that it's a genre on the rise in the same way that some others are. Nekopara, Volume 3. What is this? Is this a visual novel? Uh-oh, age gate. Hopefully there's nothing inappropriate in this. Okay, Cake Shop, right? Okay, so it's like a maid cafe cake shop. It's got like better animation than most visual novels. Hey, it's a sequel, which we learned, means that it's more likely to succeed, right? They wouldn't have made a third one if the first ones hadn't done well. Huh. So yeah, it's just like a high quality visual novel. Yeah, I think that visual novels certainly can succeed. There's a ton of competition, and you need to make sure that you stand out in as many ways as possible, and that one does with the quality of the art, the animation. Obviously also a sequel, so it's bringing its fans with it. I think that with visual novels, you could probably do that sort of thing much, much better. People are more likely to come along for sequels, just like when you read more novels in a series, you're kind of hooked. Okay, so The Long Journey Home, we talked about on Clark Tank a while ago. I almost played that one today. We're playing Nex Machina instead because I'm curious as how a twin-stick shooter is doing so well. Whereas The Long Journey Home is in a genre that's somewhat more well-known. It's strategy-ish. So Ravenfield is the one that surprised us. I almost played this as well. So this game, it just looks like kind of a Battlefield-y sort of a game, but with low-poly dudes, and they're red or they're blue. So it's very obvious who's who, which is a complaint that I have. It's hard when you're playing Battlefield or whatever to know who you're supposed to be shooting. You gotta look at the color of their name above their head, because everybody's just wearing camo or whatever. But yeah, I want to play this, but I suspect that it's just got really good game feel and well-designed, fun gameplay that, is enough to overcome the aesthetics. And it's a low price, so you're not risking too much by buying it. But I was amazed that it's single player. I thought that this was multiplayer for sure, so the fact that it's single player makes it even more surprising that it's doing so well. So Rime, this is done well, but I expected it to do even better. There seem to be some issues at launch, although the reviews there are decent. 89% is not bad. Oh, it had de novo. That's right, and then they removed it. That's what it was. Yeah, but I've also heard that the gameplay is not quite what people were hoping for, but yeah, DRM and performance issues can cause problems. So hopefully that if they fix those issues, then this game will go on to sell better, because clearly a ton of work has gone into it to make it look like this. It's gorgeous. Alright, let's look at a few more of these. Bounty Train, what are you? So yeah, people do like management sim strategy games, that is for sure. And this one looks like it's reasonably well made and polished. So not too surprising. Sid Meier's Pirates on a Train. Yeah, well, that sounds good. So yeah, not too surprising to see this one doing well. And if in your first month you make, a couple $100,000, then over time with Steam sales and things like that, especially if you do updates and DLC, then you should be able to bump this up to over 1 million or 2. So yeah, that's great news for these devs. Now, What Remains of Edith Finch was fairly high-profile indie game. It's been getting great reviews and has been coming for a long time. I remember I first heard about it like years ago, I think. All right, let's look at Emily Is Away 2. Now, this game, it's a sequel, right? Again, this with the sequels. It's just like a super innovative kind of game. Yeah, it's a game where you're doing stuff on your desktop and talking to people. It's a branching narrative game. So, there definitely is an audience for narrative, or, this isn't a visual novel, but it's definitely a narrative style game. And if you make an innovative one and stand out, that audience is large enough that you can succeed quite well. So yeah, 1,000 reviews. It's pretty dang good. So yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about before we get to the Steam Top 50 is this Kotaku article. It's interesting. It's talking about there are some games now, such as Super Duper Flying Genocide 2017, that are super cheap. It's $1, but it has 2,000 achievements in it, and some of them may be designed to kind of look like Steam, like the actual achievements from Steam client itself. And this game has sold 100,000 copies or so, and I looked on Steam Spy, and it doesn't look like it was given away for free in a bundle or anything like that. Now, of course, it's being sold for $1 and often is on sales, but still, it's tens of thousands of dollars, and it's because of the number of achievements. And there's this other game, Blood Feed, that they were offering custom achievements. So people could request achievements with custom images and text, and they would put them in. So Valve was talking about how they were trying to, crack down on game-shaped objects because people were making games that had Steam trading cards in them, and then, abusing those trading cards by giving out tons of keys to bot accounts and then selling them and stuff to make a profit when the game itself wasn't making a profit. But now there's other games like this that are making a profit not because of the game's success, but because it offers a ton of achievements, which is kind of surprising to me, because it's not like on Xbox where your gamer score number goes up or something like that when you get all these achievements. Although, does it show on your Steam user page just the total number of achievements that you've got? In which case, some people might like that number to go up by 2,000 just to make them seem like more of a impressive gamer or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't have the same sort of thing as on Xbox where you get gamer score out of it. But there are certain achievements that you might want to showcase, especially if it's a custom one. So you make your own achievement and pin it to your user page, and I can see why people would be interested in that. But I got to imagine that we will find out soon that Valve is cracking down on this sort of thing, because it seems similar to the trading cards issue that we discussed before. But now it is time to get to our homework, and there is some interesting stuff. But before we actually do it, we need to refresh the front page. And this is where I need your help. So if I'm talking about a game that's in the top 50 that is also being promoted currently on the front page, let me know. I'm going to try to remember all of them. But we want to pay attention to games that are selling well despite not being promoted. Because those are the ones that are sort of perennially selling well, during the sale. And that's more what we can learn from. We already know that being promoted generates, more sales. We're not going to learn much from that. So right off the bat, a shocking result is that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, not even on sale, is still number 1 during this Steam sale. And I've looked at the Steam charts a number of times during this sale, and every time I've looked, it's been at number 1. This just goes to show, like we talked a lot of times in the past about how being number 1 doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a specific level of sales, and all the positions on the chart is kind of ebbs and flows depending on what competition is there. But now we know that these past few months that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has been at number 1. It has been selling insanely well, because if it's still there without a discount during a sale, it's beating all these other huge blockbusters that actually are on sale. It's it's amazing. So yeah, that game, even more of a juggernaut than expected. So CSGO is normally around here, so not too surprising to see it up there when it's on sale. GTA, another. Dota, are the in-app purchases for Dota on sale? I would expect so. Otherwise, I don't think we would see it quite this high. So The Witcher, I don't think it was on the front page, and it's definitely a blockbuster, so not too surprising to see it up here. So yeah, so far it's kind of AAA blockbustery things up at the top, which we did notice during the winter sale, that sort of seemed to be the case, is that these big sales, the winter sale and the summer sale, is when people take the opportunity to buy expensive games. Because an expensive game that is 50% off, that saves you way more than an indie game that's 50% off. You know, when Necrodancer is 50% off, you only save $7. When GTA is 50% off, you save $30. So it's expected that we'll see expensive AAA-ish kind of games at the top of the chart. So I wonder which will be the first indie that we see. So Nier Automata, not surprising to see it because it was a juggernaut this year. Rocket League, similar. Black Desert Online has been in the charts lately. King of the Kill is always near the top of the charts. Shadowverse, it must have some kind of sale. Oh, it was higher. I wonder if it was having a sale on in-app stuff and then it stopped. Fallout is just a big AAA juggernaut as well. Even though they reduced the price, so you're only saving $15. Dishonored, more AAA stuff. Warframe is always in the charts. Shadow of Mordor. So where are we going to see the first indie game? And not too many of these have been on the front page either, which is interesting. It used to be definitely when there were flash sales that everything that was on the front page was a flash sale. That would generate a huge spike. Whereas now, when you're on the front page, Necrodancer was on the front page on Sunday. It generates a spike, but it's not, it's less than half of the size of the spike you'd have seen when it was a flash sale. So Shadow of Mordor, Borderlands, more King of the Kills. This is all DLC stuff. Skyrim, Borderlands. So Borderlands is on the front page, though, right? Yeah, more Borderlands stuff. The Hunter Call of the Wild. So yeah, this one came out just recently and did reasonably well. So not too surprising to see it up there. More Borderlands and H1Z1. Dark Souls, more AAA stuff. Borderlands. Look at all this Borderlands stuff because it's on sale, because it's on the front page. And Stardew. All right, here's the first indie game. And not too surprising to see it be Stardew or RimWorld or something like that, because those are the juggernauts of the indie world of the last year or so. I think Factorio still has not ever discounted, right? And I think RimWorld doesn't do much discount, so we'll see if those are in the charts at all. More Borderlands. Total War has been in the charts perennially. Doom, Rust, all these are not surprising. So Planet Coaster was on the front page. I wouldn't have been surprised to see it here even if it wasn't. Now, Darkest Dungeon, here's the next one, the next indie game. It's not quite the juggernaut that Stardew is, and I think part of the reason why it's up this high is because, well, it's a pretty steep discount, 60%, but also because they just released a DLC. They just made an update. So those two things coinciding with the sale, I think, pushed it even higher than it would have been otherwise. But good for those dudes, my friends from here in Vancouver. Dying Light, Tomb Raider, yeah, more AAA stuff. More H1Z1, so Dead Cells. It came out just so recently, and has sold insanely well. Not surprising. 7 Days to Die. Wow, Left 4 Dead still making money after all these years. I think it was in some kind of a Valve bundle, right? Hollow Knight, the next, Dead Cells and Hollow Knight. So these are recent hit indie games. So not too surprising to see them in there. Sniper. There's Sid Meier's Battlegrounds. 40% off. That's a decent discount. Now, Move or Die. We've talked about this game before. I need to get Nick, one of the developers of the game, to come and talk to me sometime about the success that they've had. So it was in early access here. And then they lowered the price. And I think they left early access here. And look at that. It's insane. And I think that they made some updates, and they've been making lots of updates, which certainly helps. But I think it also started to catch on amongst YouTubers and things like that. But there must also be more to the story. But, multiplayer online multiplayer games do have a, can succeed well these days because YouTubers and streamers like to play them against their friends and stuff like that. So Ori's Definitive Edition, it was a pretty big hit, so not too surprising. Friday the 13th, now it's not even on sale. Before the Steam sale, Friday the 13th was up, I don't know, it was like in the 20s or the teens or something like that. So Battlegrounds, which is not on sale, stays at #1, but Friday the 13th, which was around here, got shoved down this far. So that kind of shows you, assuming that it's selling at about the same level as it would have prior to the sale, it kind of shows you what that sort of elasticity is of the charts. Alright, H1Z1, this is more DLC for it. Arma 3 is perennial and it's on sale, not too surprising. Elite did reasonably well. Is it on the front page? And Prey, which sold reasonably well recently as well. So let's look. Is Elite on here somewhere? I'm a bit surprised to see it there. Nope, it's just selling well. Let's keep moving. We are going to be playing Nex Machina in a minute, so let's watch the trailer for that. It's a 30-second trailer, guys. I like the tunes. My kind of tunes. Now, man, remember when we were talking about Domina, made by Big Nick, a Clark Tank regular, and he made a very short trailer as well, and his game was also kind of like, well, his trailer was like just a lot of action-y hype and then stop, which I thought was great. And yeah, I think it works well for this game. And when they do show text, it's 3D text, it's kind of like in the world, and it's over some awesome action, but still readable. I think this trailer is very well done. Alright, let's play some Nex Machina and figure out how the heck this twin-stick shooter game is selling so dang well. Die, you alien scums, or whatever you are. Game looks okay so far. Well, it's pretty. A lot of stuff going on. Beamtron. Hello, Beamtron. Definitely getting more intense now. Getting better at saving the humans and using the rocket launcher. Get out of there. Ah! Well, that's the first, like, death since the beginning. Just dodge the spam and attack him. But yeah, I think this game is making good use of that flow state. You don't get kicked out of it even after you beat a level. It's actually reasonably hard to lose. I was, if I were focusing more and not trying to talk and things like that, I could have gone much further, I'm sure. So, I was just in the game and would have been playing for quite a bit longer if it weren't for the fact that I, kept dying and wanting to try the other modes and whatnot. But I think that if it had meta progression as well, it could sell even better. But yeah, clearly the visuals and stuff are great. I think it does have a bit of a disadvantage in that it's hard to stream it and play. But yeah, overall, pretty dang fun. When I was in the flow there, I was having fun. I found it difficult to talk and stuff like that because I was so focused. But yeah, I think that is going to wrap it up for this Clark Tank. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. This Clark Tank is over.